Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So now guys, I came across this little poster that was post on Twitter or wherever by a character, and I wanted to share it with you. So I'm talking in ambiguous terms, so let me just bring you exactly. You've already seen the headline anyway, but this was posed as a curiosity. Let me actually share how it was posed. And it was posted also. So let me share how it was posted so you see what we're talking about. So let's bring that up. So there it is right there. So that is the poster that somebody just put out on social media, inviting Nigerians to reflect on. It says, why do the marriages of uneducated couples last longer than those of educated ones? Oshibanjo's aide, Philip or bin. So that is just it. There's not much more to it than just that. It says, and there it is right there, just to give you the fullness of it. Where did they even post this? Yeah, so that's the fullness of it. Why do marriages of uneducated couples last longer than that? That should be those, of course, than that he wrote, but it should be those. So why do marriages of uneducated couples last longer than those of the educated ones, it should say? But that is the question, and this is the person saying it. Philip Obin is the technical assistant to the Vice President of Nigeria, Yemi Osinbajo, on new media. Philip Obin, who I should say, Philip Obin, who is the technical assistant to the Vice President of Nigeria, Yemi Osinbajo, on new media, took to his Twitter handle to ask this interesting question. So, what are your thoughts? Was the question, and what still are your thoughts? Remains still the question. So let's see how people are responding to this. This is Emmy. It says, "Na sabi too much na, no humility because knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. So knowledge puffs up, but love builds up," is what Emmy has to say. So it's just the divergence of opinion. So let's continue to see what people are making of this. Anonymous says, knowledge over sabi always brings sorrow. Another anonymous, simply humility. So here is baby girl for life. So this one already, baby girl for life. So even at 50, you're still baby girl, Abby. And at 60, you're still baby girl. And that tells you this sort of life that this person aspires to. But baby girl for life, she calls herself, because of ignorance. The less educated ones don't have a lot of knowledge about knowing their rights, and so therefore are so ignorant. But the educated ones over sabi no fit make them to tolerate rubbish. We always feel we deserve more. So a lot of the answers built into that response from Baby Girl for Life. Another anonymous, most of the poor people's marriages last because they marry for love, whilst the marriages of educated people crash because they marry for careers and how they look. So yeah, marrying for the right reasons are one of the reasons why uh, uh, that might well be the case. Anonymous suggests. Another anonymous, because when you are educated, you train to see and not tolerate BS. So that might well be who's that person? Another anonymous. David D. This is what he has to say. They don't speak too much English. And then he does laughing face emojis. Well, I would say the uneducated are humble and less of pride, especially the women. They are submissive. So that word submissive, one of the key words that I will be holding on to, because I think also that's one of the key reasons why that might well be the case, if that indeed is the case, that the marriages of uneducated people last longer than those of educated ones. I don't know that to be a thing, by the way, but just reading it, it sounds like something that coheres. It sounds that like there's logic behind it, but I don't know that to be a factual case. But I'm going off the back of what that guy is saying. So Onye Igbo, this is what Onye Igbo has to say. Uneducated people obey the natural law of marriage, which is no show of rights in marriage. In them, one always gets confused, defining them because the man will look like the. So I'm not quite sure how that reads. Let me take that one more time. Uneducated people obey the natural law of marriage, which is no show of rights in marriage. In them, one always gets confused. So that will be in show of rights, I'm assuming. Defining them because the man will look like the servant and fool of the house, whilst the wife do and looks the same. So even no, I don't think this makes sense. So let me just abandon that. I'm sure he had the thought, but he just couldn't express it probably in the manner that he had intended. Let's go to this anonymous. Um, no one wants to play a fool. Someone must be a fool for marriage to work. But sometimes the one playing a fool is taken for granted and then go reach the elastic limit and boom, everybody goes separate ways. So that is what this person has to say. This one now, anonymous, he writes a long-winded something which I'm not really inclined to want to plow through. So let's just skim through what this anonymous has to say, and let's go to the Lone Ranger instead. So this is the Lone Ranger uh, the Lone Ranger, bloody and painful truth. Look around you and you will see the educated ones are in competition, fighting about who is right and who is wrong. They throw caution to the wind, and are all about winning arguments and fights. On the other hand, the uneducated ones are scared of losing the little or sometimes almost nothing of what they have and are quick to say sorry, just maybe. So that stands the more to reason, and I think it's just an easy go to, isn't it? That the more educated you are, the more you are aware of both your worth as a person and your right as a being. And when you are both aware of your worth as a person and your right as a being, and you are of equal measure of that understanding, then somebody has to give way. Somebody said earlier that somebody has to play the fool in a relationship, but that is not to say to sheepishly follow, but somebody has to take the tempered role. So if you're both aggressive and are both assertive, then ultimately that is a relationship that is ending for the beings. So that is essentially what that is seeking to say. And I'm not too far in thought from that. So let's just take a few more comments. This is another anonymous. When you have two captains in one boat, it is like that. Two men in one marriage. So education essentially masculinizes, if that is such a word, turns essentially a woman into a man, is what this guy is suggesting. Because of course, all of the potencies of a man built around our finances and knowledge. And if the woman is of equal measure, then really you're not advantaged. So it is then her choice to subserve herself to you. And if she's not inclined to be subservient, and most educated women are not, and if you're not then capacitated to manage that situation, that is a marriage headed for implosion. Let's go to another anonymous. 90% of the time, the woman demands on the man for everything. That depends. It says 90% of the time, the woman depends on the man for everything and feels or cannot survive without the help of the man. So, whether good or bad, they remain there. A fact that marriages do not break does not mean the parties are happy. Educated people can fend for themselves. No, staying in a bad marriage is not worth their time. So that well, there's a lot built in that as well. But really, I think tradition has an element to play in this as well, because traditionally within the African setting, let me take this off the screen so I just round it off there. So traditionally within the African setting, the woman essentially always subservient to the man. You know, even in Yoruba culture back in the day, when the man comes back and the woman comes to give him his meal, She goes on her knees and then she'll hand over the wash bowl. The guy will wash his hands while she's still on her knees. He will wash his hands and then she will go and bring the food, place it on the stool on her knees, and then she can then get up when the guy says malo. So that is the tradition and that is the culture. So, but then the man, of course, goes to the land to till and to provide. So that was the structure then. And that structure worked perfectly within that space, within that culture. But with the infusion of education, when you are a psychologist and your wife is a medical doctor, then of course, then you weigh to equal measure. She has options, and so do you. And by the time that you look to assert, if you try to assert your masculinity too much within a relationship that we're using as an example, with to if you want to assert your masculinity too much within that sort of a relationship, then that relationship is heading for the skids very soon because the woman has options, especially if she's decent looking as well. So she's sought after publicly. She's financially independent, respected academically and professionally. So why should she subserve herself to some guy who wants to be ego led? So that is really where that space is, by my understanding. But what is your understanding of that space? Come share thoughts about all that with me in the comment section. So I'll leave it there. Carry the converse, and please make sure you're subscribed as well. We're trying to push like the streaming and click on subscribe. Like the video rather and click on subscribe. So I'll leave it there. Carry the conversation on with you in the comment section. But here I say peace.